close enough. Here we go.
Okay, I'd like to call Personnel and Human Services to order, please. And my members are Kirby and Blair. And I hope the members that are sick this evening feel better too.
True.
Okay, first one is, Chuck, I'm going to have you come up first. From the docket of March 17th, 2015, I entertain a motion to confirm the reappointment of Charles Karen to the Attleboro Housing Authority for a term of 5 years, term to expire February 2020. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, Chuck.
Hi, you know, and when I was reading it, I didn't recognize the name because I know you as Chuck. So thank you for coming in, and it was just because it is a 5-year term, so we do like to have the reappointments come in. And if there's anything else that you'd like to share about your time, how long you've been there currently.
Well, I've been there since 2000,
Okay.
so I guess this would be my third appointment.
Yep.
Once you get that higher, math gets tough for me.
And when do they meet for their meetings?
We meet the last Thursday, well, the fourth Thursday of every month. So if there's a fifth, we don't meet that night.
Okay.
We always meet, for the most part, we meet at our complex at River Court.
River Court, okay.
In the summers, we sometimes go on the road and meet at the other places. We don't always do that, but we do it sometimes. And not too much else to say.
Okay, do you guys always have a quorum, for, or do you have a problem having people show up?
We don't have a
or-
problem with a quorum, but we're in danger of having a problem with a quorum. We've been without a governor's appointee for about 3 years now.
Oh, okay.
And I had nominated someone and sent it along to the last administration, and they sat on it. They never told me that there was a problem with it and come back with something else, or that they did some investigation, and then they dropped it all. And at one point, just before the end of the administration, someone mentioned it to them, and they said, well, have that person send their information back in and we'll take another look. And I thought at that point, they should have something in the file. They should know what they did. And I thought it would be better to wait until now. But we have 5 members. Of course, you need 3 for a quorum.
Correct.
And we have 4 active, so if there's one out, we're in trouble.
Right.
There have been evenings when there was something important to vote on, and I tabled it because I don't want to
Take a
vote
ch-
without everyone there.
Oh,
I
great.
don't want a 2-to-1.
Okay.
If somebody's really interested in something, so it's affected it in that way. But the members that we have are all enthusiastic about being there.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. I just, so maybe I can send something up too to say that we haven't had an, do you want me to send something up too about that appointment? Follow up?
It's a
or-
governor's appointment.
Right. That's
So-
what I mean. Do you want me to send something out too with you, or do you want to just do that on your end? Just to say that we are aware that we need one more member?
Well, I mean, if anyone has any ideas on suggesting someone, I'm open to it.
Okay, thank you. I'll
I have
open
my
the-
wish list. I don't know if I'll ever get my total wish list, but
Okay, I'll open the floor for any other questions or comments. I just wanted you to come in, and it's very informal, just to say hi to, and thank you for taking the time out to come in. Thank you. And I'm for you, so, we'll vote on it next week. Yes.
Thank you. Again, Chuck, welcome. I want to thank you for your years of service on the Housing Authority. I know you've been a dedicated member for a number of years, and I want to thank you for that. Thank you for coming in tonight to reintroduce yourself to this council, and hope to see you before us again real soon.
Okay?
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, thank you for your service. Oh,
I just want to say the same thing. This is my first time on the council. Thank you. Volunteers are important in the city, and thank you for your time, sir.
thank you. And that's why I wanted
This
people to come
position,
in.
by the way, just for a little bit of background, because you might wonder why why would I hang on as long as I have? But the way it's set up, the mayor has 4 appointments, and all of his appointments have been made. But only 2 of them are at-large appointments. The third one has to be a tenant. And the fourth one, which is me, is a labor appointment.
Okay.
And it can't be someone who's in a city labor union. It could be someone from Brockton or someplace,
Okay.
but they can't be working for the city of Attleboro and be eligible. So I'm a union member through my state job,
Yeah.
and that's not connected. I was a Teamster for a long time before I got my state job, so that was okay. But it's always been a hard spot to fill. There's no one beating down the door saying, when are you gonna get rid of him and let me have it? I'm not doing it just because of that, but it's a difficult spot to fill. And, it makes me also think, if I were to say, getting up there, I wanna retire, it might take you the next 4 years to find someone to replace me, so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for all of your years of service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I read the motion. I have a second. Any other comments or questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Good night. From the docket of April 3rd, 2015, I entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Bertha M. Young, 6 Nancy Avenue, to fill an unexpired term on the Conservation Commission, term to expire February 2016.
Second.
Thank you. And Bertha is here this evening. If you want to come up to the podium, please. And thank you for coming in also. We had a little bit of email technical difficulties, so thank you. And I do have your resume. And before we ask you any questions, maybe you want to just go over your background, why you want to be on the Conservation Commission, elaborate in any way, and you have the floor before I open the questions up.
Okay, well, I don't know how much detail you want, but I have a college degree and a master's in education. I was a biology major and worked for a little while in the medical field. And then I got a job working with children with special needs, and I loved that. But ended up working in the community residential field for people with developmental disabilities. And I did that for 35 years. I retired in 2008. My husband and I sailed for about a year on a sailboat, and we kept our sailboat and would take off on it every once in a while until last fall, a year ago, last fall. So at that point, I really thought that I wanted to give back to my community. I've lived here for 40 years. My son went through the school system. I love Attleboro, and I was interested in conservation, both ocean conservation and land conservation. I was on the board of directors for 4 years at the Attleboro Land Trust and enjoyed that, but kind of wanted to expand my horizons and get a different perspective. And Don Ouellette told me about the vacancy on the Conservation Commission, and so I petitioned the mayor and spoke with Gary Erasian.
Thank you. With the land trust, that would be, so you've had to even deal with certain conservation issues that you've, as the land trust member.
Yes.
Okay, because you're familiar with our wetlands ordinances and.
Yes, yes, and I've been going to conferences for a number of years, and so I've been learning on a lay level about forestry management and water treatment and sewage and wastewater treatment and whatnot, so on a lay level, but I'm familiar with a lot of the issues. I still have a lot to learn, but I hope to do that on the commission.
Great, because they do have a full agenda, usually. A lot goes through the Conservation Commission. I've actually been up there a few times, and they, even some of the issues that have come before us with the wetlands, or even with the IBP and the wetlands there, and other issues in the city, and I know Mark was on the planning. Were you on conservation too? Okay, I wasn't sure about that. So, and I'll open the floor for any other questions or comments. I think you'll be a good fit myself, so thank you. Yes.
Just want to say thank you for volunteering. Thank you for your years of service. There's a couple of special education teachers up here as well, so we can relate in that way. A number of us have been teachers over the years. So I want to welcome you and thank you for your time and for volunteering.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I look forward to talking with you some more also. And we'll probably vote it out of committee tonight, and then next week we'll vote on the appointment, and then the mayor just has to sign it. And then I think by Friday, it'll be certified.
Great.
So thank you for taking the time.
Somebody will let me know I have to be
Yes.
sworn in or.
Yes, in the city clerk's office.
Yes, they always send out a notice, or they'll call you, or whatever.
Yeah.
I think the mayor's secretary, she calls people too sometimes, so.
Sometimes you'll see a letter in the mail that you can go in between these times and be sworn in.
But I'll send you an email now that we're on. Now that I have your right email, I'll just send you an email next week if it goes through, and then you'll know the mayor just has to sign it. How's that?
That's great.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Thank you.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Okay. Any other comments or questions? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. And did Rick Rose come in this? Okay, thank you. From the docket of April 21st, 2015, I entertain a motion to confirm the appointment of Rick G. Rose, 81 Tanager Road, to fill an expired term on the Cultural Council, term to expire February 2018.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming in this evening. I was very impressed with the.
No.
Where you going?
Oh,
Thought it was that easy.
I was
not
going to
that
say,
easy.
I was very impressed, but now you also have a sense of humor, too. So you're very well-rounded. I'll go over your resume, but I know I was also very impressed with the letter that you wrote, that you want to help with the Cultural Council's treasurer position. So I'll let you elaborate.
Okay. I'll start with my background. I've been a CPA in the state of Massachusetts since 1998. My background started at Ernst & Young in the Boston office. Since then, I've been in different jobs in accounting, finance, business consulting, that type of thing. Had my own business, worked in companies probably from a startup to multi-billion-dollar companies globally. Moved to Attleboro 10 years ago. Before that, I lived in the South End of Boston. Saw a really big surgence of arts and restaurants, that type of thing. Being able to walk out of your house and really enjoy what the city had to offer right there. I find that to be very enticing. Live pretty close to downtown, so would love to see that happen here. Right now, I'm self-employed, so I have a little bit more time to be able to give back to that degree. Finding out. A lot of smaller organizations. I actually am the treasurer of my daughter goes to Willett. So there, one of the things I found out is there are a lot of things in terms of how things are set up that they need help with. So from that standpoint, I know Kimberly's on the Cultural Council also mentioned to me what was going on. So I felt that my duty sort of to step up and give some time to that. So.
That would be great. Like I said, I was impressed with your resume and all the background that you had, and I think it would be great if you can help as the treasurer position there, because they do give out the Cultural Council grants.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I've been to a meeting, and so that's one of the areas we ensure that we make sure that's tightened up.
Oh, that would be great. I'll open the floor, and I know people want to say thank you.
Yeah, I would just, again, thank you for your volunteering and your participation. I'm in the same school district as you, so my daughter went through Willett, is now at Brennan, so I want to welcome you to that. And I know the people at Willett are a great group of people to work with. So, and I know the Cultural Council will be the same way for you, and so we want to welcome you and welcome your volunteerism and your help within the city. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And as I said to everyone else, we'll vote on it, and then I'll send you an email next week if it goes through the whole council. But but I don't see a problem, so thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay, any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes. And actually, I just have a couple things I want to do, so I'm gonna take a recess,
Okay.
okay?
Move for recess?
Yes, second. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, we are in recess.
So the Committee on Ordinances, Elections, and Legislative Matters is canceled. However, I do plan to have an updated committee meeting the night of the 28th, which is our next regularly scheduled committee meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, whoever's up.
There was,
Didn't even get an order.
we did have an order, but,
I don't think we're gonna adhere to it this
well,
evening.
Once we're past 7:10, we're good.
yeah.
You can do yours.
Ken, how many motions did you vote to?
Yeah, I just have to do something
You,
else.
don't you have people coming in?
I'm in recess.
If his guests are here right now.
You want me to,
Go.
Because you have people.
Let your people go first.
Yeah.
okay, thanks, Ron.
So did you recess? Okay.
I had to
I'll
double
be
check
your
on something.
second. My second is
I'm
first.
gonna ask these people to come.
Yeah, we have all the, yeah, we have provided information. Hold on.
So, ordinances, elections, and legislative
Oh, yeah, you've all three
matters.
members, right?
Isn't,
Public Works is going to some good
Yeah,
energy,
I'm not sure what they have to
Right.
decide about.
and then after that will be Budget Administration,
Can I give you other information?
Cody, Mayor, and
So they can go to the
Correct.
table then?
Yeah, they go right to
then
the
Property
table.
and Claims.
Was Mike's on,
but
by the
city
way?
property and claims, I think, is
Yes.
canceled.
I have Traffic and Transportation. Yes?
I have a copy, because I didn't get it.
Yeah, I have.
Thank you. I probably have that, but.
No, sir.
Mike,
Got enough paper.
Oh, I'll take one.
You can never have enough.
I can never have enough copies. So true.
Fine, I'll give you one.
feel free to jump in.
Hey, at some point, I'll give you everything for the last 12 years.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll give you the file cabinet for the last 12 years.
I need 5 file cabinets. So.
I'd like to call the Public Works Committee to order at 7:18.
Second.
I don't need that
I know
one.
you don't, but I'm just
A week
practice.
away, I'm a little rusty.
Practice.
You've never had a week away,
I
practically.
had a couple. First of all, I'd like to apologize for not being here last week, but due to circumstances beyond my control, I was needed at the Masters Tournament, pick up cups and stuff like that around the green. But once in a lifetime, twice for me, and it's,
I was gonna say, I've heard you say that before.
yeah, once.
You need to bring the green jacket like you did last year.
It doesn't fit anymore.
Oh, that's another issue. Never mind.
Okay. 7:18. Now that, let's get serious. We have a couple gentlemen here this evening. I realize the rest of the council had a presentation last week from the same two people, right? I have a motion here tonight to bring it forward to the mayor. But I would like to give the opportunity to my fellow council, if there's any further questions that weren't asked last week, that we have the opportunity to address them at this time to you. And I thank you for coming back this week. Mr. Conti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, Mr. Ross, you said that you had approached 18 communities and had over 150,000 households signed on. But in our slideshow, it says that you had an extensive history with aggregations in other states. And I'd like for you to just embellish on that a little bit, to tell us some stories of what you've done in other states and how it led to you coming to this community and partnering with Serpent.
Well, I am with Serpent. I'm Ross Perry for Serpent.
I'm sorry for not
It's okay.
introducing.
And with me is Stefano Loretto from Good Energy. So through Serpent, we've approached 14 communities. As of last night, it's 15 that have voted to sign the aggregation. So that's the piece that we're doing. In my role of helping towns work together to save money, I do group purchases. This is an example of a group purchase where not only will the residents of Attleboro combined for a group purchase, but will combine with the other 14 towns. Then we hired Good Energy, who will be our consultant and broker and the aggregator through the process. and that's where Stefano comes in. So I think your question was where we've done this in other locations.
There's two parts to my question. One is it common for a government entity like Serpent to be involved with a private enterprise to work with multi-communities here and in other states is really what
Well, only working with them
I know.
in this
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
They've got work in a couple other states. But if I find a service that makes sense for our member communities, I have partnered with other private enterprises in the past to do this, where I've hired consultants to do studies.
Such as what? Illustrate, give an example.
We've hired a consultant to do a study on combining dispatch operations between towns. It's different from this, but somewhat the same. So we've done that type of work. We'll find a consultant that can help us bring the expertise to that project. And that's where we're working with Good Energy. We selected them by screening all the aggregators that are working in Massachusetts. We sent out a detailed scope of services and had them solicit responses. The screening was decided by representatives from the 8 communities that were involved in the project at the time. We brought in 3 companies, Good Energy being one of them, for interviews, and it was a unanimous vote of these 8 representatives to select Good Energy. So we went over and above the procurement law in Massachusetts to make this selection and feel comfortable, and they've proved for the last several months that they can provide us with the support that we need and the support that you'll need to market this to your residents to make it happen.
So, Ms. Loretto, you've done this in other states.
Yes.
What other states have you done it? And was it generated by your initiation, or was it generated by a municipality origination?
So the first state that we did this in was in Illinois, starting in mid-2011. Excuse me, and it's not all that different than Massachusetts. There was a variety of factors with the way the utilities purchase power. There was going to be some changes, and it provided a significant amount of savings right off the bat. At the time, we were doing procurement services for electricity and natural gas for the city of Peoria. And when there was a change in this law that allowed for what's called municipal aggregation, they said, can you look into this for us and see if this is something we can do? And we did that for them, and were very successful in providing benefits to their residents. And if you fast forward maybe a year and a half later, so now it's 2013, and we have over 150 communities that we do this for in Illinois. We just completed our 3rd set of renewals 2 months ago. Very proud of the fact that no community has ever left us.
If I could interrupt you.
Sure.
So at one time, it was against the law in Illinois for communities to combine their purchasing strength. And then a law passed, and it became possible to have communities join together to purchase their power.
It wasn't that it was against the law. They always had deregulation, which is basically allowing individuals and entities to go and procure their supply of electricity from a third-party supplier. What they didn't have was the particular language of the law that allows for municipal aggregation, which allows city bodies to create a buying group on behalf of all their residents. So it didn't have that. Massachusetts has had that language in the law really since the beginning, since the onset of deregulation in '97. It's been somewhat successful with some of the aggregations, but we didn't really enter the market until this year, just because of the fact that we felt, 2014, a year ago, because we felt that was the year the value proposition was going to become substantial. Previous to that, the programs were 6 months in, 6 months out. You're always trying to beat the rate change, and they were never really all that successful long term. But once we saw what was going to happen with some of the volatility with the default rate service in 2014, we committed to coming into the state and providing the service that we do.
Thank you, Ms. Lloyd, and thank you, Mr. Ross. I've read through the presentation you gave us, and I listened carefully to your presentation, but I really didn't understand, and I think a lot of consumers don't understand, how deregulation opened the door for them to have different possibilities. And the issue of opting out opting in, was I think was part of that consequence of the deregulation. I mean, you know, I understand the need for you to have a commitment. You need to know what your customers are. You need to forecast what you think your business is going to be, and I'm pretty comfortable with the program. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conti. Mr. Dunley, then Mr. Churchill, and then Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Vice President Blair. So, Mr. Loretto, you work for Good Energy. And we talked a little last week, and I think it's important that the public understands. You are a for-profit company.
Yes.
And that's actually a good thing, in my opinion. That means you have some skin in the game. And can you explain to me again how you make your money, how the company makes profit?
Sure. So so there's no cost, there's no out-of-pocket cost to the community. All of the marketing expenses, all of the mailings that get done are paid by us. We get compensated by the winning supplier, and it's reflected as a point, so it's 0.001 dollar per kWh. It comes out to 1/10 of 1 penny, right? 0.001. I want to make sure we get the decimals right. And that's how we get paid, and it's built into the price. So when somebody gets their bill, the rate that they see is going to include our fee in that. It comes out to the average household of, depending on their usage, $6 to $8 a year.
And this, in my opinion, and tell me if I'm wrong, this is a good thing because the idea is that we save more than that, significantly more than that much money. So that little bit tacked on isn't that much, but you also have the incentive of you need to do a good job or else your employees can get fired or the company is not profitable, so you need to then keep your end. So it's kind of like a win-win. Is that your opinion?
Well, our interests are aligned in that we need to maintain participation. We need to maintain we do not want a situation where the program doesn't add value and people are leaving and opting out of the program. Our interests are aligned. We want to maximize participation, and we do that by creating a valuable program.
And Good Energy's job is to advocate for your participating cities. So
That's
you would
right.
be advocating on our behalf for
That's right.
lower prices.
That's right. We're not a supplier, so we have no horse in this race. We create a competitive bid, and we'll get some of the largest suppliers in the country bidding on this bulk purchase and making it competitive, which equates to lower prices. And that's really, to touch on Councilor Conti's point, that's really, you touched on something very important. The average resident that may be watching this is sitting there saying, and some people that have businesses may know that their business or participate and benefit from deregulation for 15 years now, but residents really don't, and they don't have the same buying power because all of us individually are insignificant alone. But you pull that together, and I ran through some of the numbers last time, and the one that I remembered in my notes was that the city of Attleboro, by pulling together its citizens, will have the same purchasing power of about 200 Walmart stores. So just to give you an idea, you're not talking about just a slightly bigger number. You're talking about an incredibly large number that now you go from having the same type of buying power that those large commercial customers have, and you're able to get far better terms, far better rates, and just an overall better product.
If I may follow up.
Certainly, Mr. Dunn.
So whose job is it to maintain poles and lines and all that stuff? Does that become Good Energy's role? Whose role is that?
No, so that part of what changed in the deregulation law was that the utilities had to divest themselves of any generation assets and and operate that as a pass-through. So National Grid doesn't make any money on the supply of electricity that you get. If you were to look at your bill, which I think I had a sample of, it was one of these bills. What page is it? If you were to look at your bill, you'd see that it's broken up really into.
Should be slide 25.
It's broken up. Here's a sample of it, right? So this should all look familiar. It's broken up into two portions. One is the generation, and then the other, one is supply services, and the other one is labeled delivery services. So they operate the supply services as a pass-through. They make no money on that. The delivery portion is what you're paying National Grid to maintain the infrastructure, the lines, the poles, and that does not change.
And they make money off that.
And they make money off
So
that.
National Grid still has an incentive to make sure our poles are up during storms, and they would still be our point person to maintain the electrical grid within the city of Attleboro.
That's exactly right.
Because they're still being paid
That's their
on
job, yeah.
distribution side.
Delivery, distribution,
side,
delivery,
and you're
distribution,
well, Good Energy is helping us conglomerate on supply side.
supply side.
Good, thank you. That answered many of my questions.
And just, you know, that does not change. So the bill, as far as what looks different on the bill, they're still gonna get, residents will still get a single bill. It'll look identical to this, except right now where it says basic service under the supply portion, theoretically it would have the winning supplier's name. So whether that's, you know, Constellation or whatever company's winning supplier that is, that's the only item that would change on this.
So if someone has so a neighborhood has a power outage, we still call National Grid.
Right.
And they still come fix it.
Right, and there is no decreased, sometimes you hear people say, oh, well, if you're a part of the program and your neighbor isn't, and you both lose power, well, who does National Grid, are they gonna fix somebody's power first because you're still with the basics? They are completely indifferent to that. They will stand up and tell you that. They don't even know, the guys that are coming out fixing poles, they don't know who your supplier is. None of that changes. The quality of service is absolutely unaffected by deregulation.
They get paid delivery side. So
Right.
it doesn't matter if someone's Good Energy or has opted out of Good Energy. Their job is to deliver energy through whatever service provider that household has chosen.
Correct.
Okay, good. Then my next question has to do with, we were mentioning last week that the city, there's this process where it goes through city council and yada yada, and there's a few steps, and then we appoint one individual who goes on bid day, because the bids are only open for short periods of time, like an hour or two. And that individual locks in our rate for the city. Who does that individual typically end up being in the previous cities? Is it a mayor? Is it who carries that baton for the city typically?
Well, I'll give you a little, so I didn't want to make it come across as it's a very open, leading up to the bid. There's indicative pricing that is discussed amongst yourselves. We can come and talk to you and tell you some of the things so it's not something that's closed room with only one person that has access to it. It's open and discussed. It's just that when we go to bid and we receive those prices, that bid typically is going to need to be signed within a couple of hours. So there's not going to be enough time for a convening of the council. So somebody would be pre-authorized to sign on their behalf. And because we've been meeting ahead of time, we're going to have a real idea of where these prices are going to be coming in. It's not going to be something totally unexpected. So we're going to know going into that if it's within this band, we're going to sign. If something unexpected happens in the market that causes volatility to cause the price to drop out of that band, well, then you're not going to sign, right? So,
Yeah.
So in the past, it's been mayors, and sometimes it's been people that have energy managers. It's been city or town administrators, city managers. It really is. It can be really anybody who the city kind of authorizes to be the person that's signing on that day. But again, you're not going out on a limb with this with unknown information. That is going to be, the actual signing of that document is almost a formality at that point. We know where it's coming in.
Because we will have pre-approved ranges and,
We're going to discuss all of that.
okay. And then one last question. We talked about percentages of opt-outs, and I just wanted to make sure I understood it. I think what I heard was generally about 5% opt-out right away. And while there is some continuing opt-outs throughout the period, there's also people dropping third-party contracts who are now, or moving, who are now eligible to opt in. So while that 5% opt-out is right at the beginning, all the opt-outs are kind of throughout the process are counteracted by the new homeowners and the new people who come in or come out of other third-party contracts. So it tends to be about a 5% opt-out rate throughout. Is that a correct understanding?
So the typical opt-out rates are less than 5%.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. What we have found in our programs is that over time, the people that are not included in the program initially because they've already made an election to go with a third-party supplier, when they look and say, oh, wow, I'm making up numbers, I'm at 11 cents and the aggregation is at 10 cents, I'm going to opt in. They'll terminate their contract, whatever they need to do that, and then they'll opt in. So we've actually seen participation in our communities grow.
Okay.
And we're very diligent about making sure that anybody that moves within a community would technically you'd be out of the program once you close your National Grid account, and when you move to a new house and open a new account, you need to get back into the program. We're very good at doing that on a monthly basis. We learned how to do that on towns that have a lot of universities or colleges, where all of a sudden summer rolls around and 20% of you get 10,000 accounts that close, making sure that those get re-enrolled when people come back to start a school. So we're very good at making sure that we maintain that participation.
And then, Mr. Perry, just one easy question for you. So Serpent's role in this is you are advocating for the cities and towns of southern Massachusetts, if I'm correct, and you see this as a positive opportunity to help us lower our energy costs. So you're kind of not the middleman, but you're helping us.
I'm a facilitator in this process.
Okay.
I learned about aggregation through a bunch of ways. I ended up meeting Good Energy. It seemed like a smart way to go for government to actually lower the expenses for residents. Usually you're trying to figure out how to minimize tax increases. So yes, I'm a facilitator in putting the parties together. And
That's it?
that gets us this far.
That's awesome. Thank you for answering all my questions. I know it's kind of nitpicky, but I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
I'm very excited about all of this. I think this is great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Reader's Digest version. Your ability comes from volume. We're going to contribute to that volume. The only risk for the citizens of Attleboro is that their price is going to go down.
Correct.
Bottom line.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. I'm asking some of these questions for Council Parika, who's not here this evening. She sent an email and asked that we ask questions, so I'll read some of them to you. Some of them I've elaborated on because, as I've heard you speak. So one of them comes back to two of Council Denley's points. Outside towns, I think you had mentioned that there were towns outside of the Serpent catchment area that have thought that this was a good idea. Can you tell me who that was again?
Well, Northbridge has specifically joined what I call the Serpent Energy Project. They liked our solicitation process. They figured that if they went out to bid, they'd probably end up in the same place, so why not just accept our solicitation and work with Good Energy. Good Energy is also calling on other communities in Massachusetts as their own business development activity. So Stefano can tell you some of those other names that they're talking to.
Okay. And then the other question that relates to one of the questions Council Denley had was a little more specific in that Council Parika was wondering if the Department of Public Utility mandates that the town manager or mayor is designated as the negotiator, and I would say that the answer to that question is no, based on what you stated. And then her subsequent comment to that is elected officials have the potential of changing every few years, and it may be reasonable to investigate the viability and practicality of having, she suggests, the city auditor or a similar position as the signing authority. Is that something that seems completely unreasonable to you gentlemen, or that you think that that's reasonable?
I think it sounds reasonable.
Okay, now to number one. I started at the bottom. If a consumer and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm just going to read it so you can answer it. If a consumer on the first contract opts out or is unable to participate because they have an existing contract, opts out, and the initial proposed 2 to 3 year contract comes to an end, and the city and Good Energy bid a new contract, can those consumers now opt in?
Yes, that's a great question. So anybody who opts out, and we make a distinction between somebody that's with a third-party supplier and somebody that opts out. The person that opt out is saying, I don't want to participate. They will be given another chance to opt out at the onset of a new contract. So every new contract, somebody's going to get a new opt-out letter. Now, somebody who is with a third-party supplier is technically not eligible for the program because you have made an election to go with a different supplier. So this law is not written to override your existing decision. So you are not going to get any of the mailings, you're not going to get any of the solicitations that would be mailed out from the town, from the city. But once your third-party supply contract expires, or you terminate it, or you live by whatever contract you signed with them, then you can come in and opt into that program.
Okay.
Just make that distinction, because there's, one is you consciously saying, I don't want to be in it, and the other one is you with a third-party supplier, and then saying, now I want to get in.
Okay.
So, but yes, every time a new contract would start, there would be another round of opt-out letters, another opportunity to participate.
Okay. I think this is relatively unlikely, but I'll ask it anyway. If qualifying bids come back higher than National Grid, do we have the option to choose the lower rate? This has been discussed and in the PowerPoint, but I would like this point clarified.
Sorry, if the bid rates come back higher than the National Grid basic service rate,
Right. I think that's what she's asking.
would she have the power to choose?
Right.
We won't even accept those bids. We'll just go back and wait for the market to change, and people
Yeah.
will stay with National Grid's basic service. So
Okay.
we're not going to make the switch until the prices are right. And one reason we can get the better prices is because Good Energy can go out to bid strategically. They can bid when they think the market is right versus being forced to bid when National Grid and NSTAR do at a certain day each year, when, as it turned out last year, the market was horrendous for buying electricity. But they still had to bid. We'll be able to bid on the good days, the good time of the year.
Okay. And then lastly, would participants in this program still be eligible for Mass Saves Energy rebate programs?
It won't affect anything. Anybody that's on assisted income,
All rate classes
Yeah, the
will
rate
will
class.
continue forward,
right?
Yeah, I don't,
just with different prices.
I don't think that's necessarily what she means, but I think including but not limited to small commercial and industrial programs such as upstream residential programs and commercial MOU programs, agreements between the utility company and the commercial business.
Yeah, this doesn't, it won't impact any other state programs, incentive programs, rebate programs. This is just changing the supplier, no different than right now. If
Okay.
you were to change supplier, it probably wouldn't affect any of those programs as well.
Okay. All right, I hope I did. I know she's watching. I don't know what camera's on, but I hope that I did her questions justice, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. That
Well,
concludes my comment,
And
my questions.
whoever has more questions is welcome to call me or call Stefano, and we'll get you the answers. So
Okay.
this is an ongoing process, and we expect to be around to answer questions for a long time.
One more thing, if I may. I don't know if they grabbed you before we started, but the cable company would like to discuss
Yeah.
the program with you and do an update on the local cable TV. So if you would, either one or both of you gentlemen would be kind enough to do that, that would also be good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you for asking those questions.
Thanks.
Heather sent them, and I hope you get well fast, Heather. But I thought you would, where you had been here last week, you were better to understand the questions and get the answers that she wanted. So
no problem.
thank you for taking that on for me.
Thanks.
Ms. Hegney?
Thank you. Thank you for coming in too and answering all the questions. Jeremy hit a couple of the points, but I know I had some constituents say it's too good to be true. And do you have an answer for that? Because I know you're the facilitator, and we're just changing, like Jeremy said, National Grid will still be the phone call for the service for anything that goes wrong, but is there anything, because I know that's what people say, it's too good to be true. So the upsides, the downsides, how would you answer that?
Well, I mean, I would just say that, you know, really the program, I think we're all familiar with the concept, right? It's the BJs, it's bulk purchasing. So the concept is that you're just going out and buying a bulk purchase. The law makes it very easy. It's not that we're saying there's no termination penalties. The law is written that way, that anybody can leave at any time without any penalty. That pretty much, I think, to Councilor Churchill's point, I mean, that eliminates pretty much all the downside if you have no penalty and you can leave at any time to go back to the basic service. So I know, I always hate saying too good to be true because it immediately throws up some red flags, but I don't know of any downside when you can leave any time with no penalty. We make it very easy to leave. If somebody doesn't want to leave, they can call us, they can call the utility, they can call the supplier. That information is readily accessible. So that's the only, I don't know really what else I would say.
No, because that's what someone says, like, Councilor Hagney, this is too good to be true. It has to be something.
That is probably the hardest question we've had to answer in the whole process, is how do you show someone
What's the downside?
it's a
right?
no-brainer? Because
And I think Jeremy, Councilor Denley had hit a point where when you go in for the bids, you're not gonna take anything that's at the basic or higher. So you'll kind of say, we'll wait. Whereas some people that might have locked into like the oil as a group, once you're set into that rate, you're set in and you can't back out. Where you're saying if you're going for a bid and you're seeing fluctuation, the volatility of that market, that you're gonna lock in at that lower rate. So you're never going to be at or higher than the basic rate.
Well, that I want to clarify because the rates in Massachusetts swing wildly. So, so last winter, this past winter, your supply rates were just above 16 cents. Up until November of 2014, they were just about 9 cents. So you went from 9 to 16. So they're going to come back down to just around 9 next month. So everybody should be prepared for a little bit of relief. For the next rate change from May to November is going to be significantly lower. Now, we never have more visibility than those 6 months because the utilities don't release the rates for more than that. So there is a very good likelihood, to be upfront, that you could be saving significantly for the 6 months where the rate is high in the mid to high teens. And then for the summer months, when it drops down, there is a chance that you could be even or maybe giving back $5 a month at that point. But that's why the only way we can actually, when we talk about savings, they have to be annualized savings. Because anybody that sits there that guarantees you that you're going to beat both rate changes throughout the entire term, I would never make that type of guarantee. That would be misleading you. Because I can't even tell you what the rate's going to be November 1st, 2015, let alone June 2017. So. But the expectation is clear that you are going to be saving money on an annualized basis.
Because we're going in as a group.
Because you're going good as a
a
group, and we're
BJ.
also purchasing at a great time. So we're all excited, you know, it's 65 degrees outside, and we're, you know, it feels like midsummer, but it was actually not a cold winter nationwide. So the markets are actually, we're in a good time to do purchasing. Last winter, with the polar vortex, a lot of the country had a very cold winter, and that's why the prices spiked up so much, and that's the pain we felt for the last 6 months with these winter rate changes. This winter, even though we had a really rough February in the Northeast, you know, I have friends in Minneapolis, you know, sending me pictures of wearing T-shirts, you know, when it was 55 degrees there. So it was a mild winter nationally, which has kept prices down. So we're in a good market to go to bid in the fall.
Thank you.
May I ask one question? Seeing I wasn't here last week, how long is the rate going to be guaranteed for? And will there be any fluctuation over the period?
So that really isn't determined. There's a bidding matrix here that
slide
is
20, with the
slide
yellow on
20.
it.
So we think, based on what we're seeing in the market, it's going to be in the 2 to 3 year range, but we really would provide to you ahead of time a matrix that would have different term lengths, and then as well as different green you could add additional green to it, and there'll be different prices, and you collectively would weigh those options.
What my question was, that whether it be 24 months, 30 months, 36 months, it will be an even rate,
Oh, okay.
12 months of the year.
It'll be even 36 months.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Right,
saying.
yeah.
Fixed
So
rate
right
with
now
no
we're-
changes.
Excuse me, right now, we're experienced like we did this winter when we had an upsurge, and now we'll get a downsurge for the summer.
Right.
This will be something that we can plan on, or the people can plan on, for the length of the contract that you come up with.
Absolutely.
Okay, just for clarification.
No, I misunderstood you, but yeah, if it's a 3-year contract and it's whatever, 10 cents, whatever number it is, it's gonna be that for the full term.
That alone, to me, gives somebody a chance to budget properly
Yes.
and look into the future and know, and if they save some kilowatts, they're saving money at that rate. My wife chased me around all winter to make sure I didn't leave a light on. But, no, thank you. That was my question. I think I understood most of it.
We've heard that from a lot of people as well, where they say, look, instead of my rate going from, 16 to 10, if it just stayed at 13 year-round, I'd just be happier because at least I can budget. So
Yeah.
the savings are a bonus, but we clearly expect to have savings. There will be savings.
Yes, okay. Mr. Denley, you have another question?
Yeah, just my last question is, so time frame this for me. So I know there's many steps and the council goes through it. I'm not really interested in those micro details. I'm interested in, if we all go through this process, when would that bid take? Is that a November thing? When will we lock it in? Is it different per community? I assume it's not, because we're collectively locking in a rate. So can you kind of explain that time frame to me?
Right, so the process is somewhat lengthy. It requires approval, a consultation by the Department of Energy Resources, as well as an approval of the aggregation plan by the Department of Public Utilities. That can take several months. It will take several months. So the expectation is that the plans will be approved by the DPU in late summer. So we're looking at August, September. And then the actual bid would happen in September, October timeframe, which is an ideal time to procure energy because it's really what's called the shoulder months, where it's not so hot that you need air conditioning and not so cold that you need heating. So it's the windows open time of year, which is a good time to purchase electricity. And it would start for the November meter read. So instead of having your next rate change go, the rates change in National Grid May 1st, November 1st, it would coincide with that November 1st, 2015 meter read. And that's an important distinction because we want to make sure that any residents that are watching this understand that this is nothing that's going to happen next month or the month after. We're talking about your November meter read.
Okay, so I just want to repeat, we would try and lock in those rates sometime in fall.
Right.
Shoulder months. And then it would take effect with the November billing. Yes.
Ideally, yeah.
I don't think that's a long time frame. I think that's a very reasonable time frame. It's within this calendar year.
Yeah,
I think that's
and we'll
great.
be getting the summer rates shortly, so that we will be getting a relief in our bills during the summer.
Just without good energy, just
Right.
because of the time of the year.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Right.
And we'll catch this before the next peak price comes through.
Yeah. Thank you. I think this is a very good compact time frame where we can make some changes, and right around November, the citizens can start actually seeing those price changes and
Right.
differentials. So,
Do you want to mention the votes now?
All set? I want to thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, Frank, I didn't even know you were here.
Thank you. Thanks again, gentlemen, for coming in and for all of your work. I appreciate the time you spent giving information to myself and in recent months. But following up on Councilor Denley's comment, or last comment, after the bid process, could you talk a little bit about the public education outreach and when that would occur, and perhaps a few details of perhaps what you've done in the past with other communities and what that would look like in
Sure.
Attleboro? Were we to go forward with this, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So it was gonna be the last thing I wanted to mention. So since we met last week, so this is I'm not going to be able to see this, but this is the website that's been created for all the Serpent communities. And coming off of last week's presentation, we've gone ahead and added the city of Attleboro, and the city has already linked to this from the municipal website. So any resident that now goes to the city's website will see right on the main page, we'll see a link that will link them to this. And this is not designed to sell, it's not salesy, it doesn't say good energy anywhere on it. This is purely an informational website. It tells them that the city is exploring the opportunity. It doesn't say that the city has decided to do anything. It gives some basic information about the program. It lists all the other cities and towns that are doing this as part of the SERPED group, and it has an extensive FAQ section that will answer. It's really 4 years of hearing every question and logging it, so it'll go a long way to helping residents understand it. And then if you were to scroll further down this page, residents can actually enter in their email, name, their city they live in, and they can be kept updated of the progress of the program. We've had several thousand people enter their name. There's also a message board, which I personally monitor, and it's really been nothing but positive. So this is the low-hanging fruit when it comes to public awareness, because it's something that we can do right away, and it access a lot of people. Whoever's watching this show, we will make sure to give you the website. It's SERPED, so it's SRPED-MUNIAGG.com. I know it sounds long. It's SERPED-MUNIAG.com.
It's also available right from the Attleboro webpage. It's right on the front page. It's an easy to click to.
Right.
To do this. And we will be adding to the Attleboro tab tomorrow or the next day the video from the city council meeting last week. We've edited it down to just the time when we were talking about the aggregation program, and that's going to be linked from the Attleboro tab on this page.
So that is the first, so that's step one, is the website, because it's very easy to reach the masses like that. Then what we do is we develop a plan. So we find out what's the best media resources. I think we were talking last week about some radio, newspapers, and then we basically develop a plan that we implement in the weeks preceding the reception of the opt-out letter. That way residents we do some early radio so people know about it, and then there'll be some quiet time, and people won't be really thinking about it too much because the rates will be down, it'll be the summer. And then before the opt-out letters go out, we start to ramp up some of the advertising and marketing so that residents are aware of that opt-out letter, so when they get it, they're expecting it and they're not wondering what it is. It'll be recognizable as coming from the city, it'll have the city seal, and make sure that every resident knows that this is something that it'll differentiate it from all the things that fill your mailboxes promising to save you money on your electricity. And that's the key thing. And that's part of what this website really talks about, is it makes a distinction that this program has nothing to do. Nobody's knocking on your door, nobody's calling you, nobody's putting flyers in your mailbox, and that when the program does move forward, it'll be clear that it's coming from the city.
And we'd like to have someone from the city to work with us to be sure to review the material before it goes out, to point us in the right directions. You know, if there's the cable access TV that you already introduced us to, if there's a Rotary Club, a seniors club, if there's special language needs that you need addressed, we want your input because we'll shape the marketing program accordingly. So that's, someone from the city to work with us to advise us on that.
That's a great point. We've worked, having done this for so many different communities, there's a lot of communities that have multilingual needs, and so we've done...
We do.
Right, so we've done flyers that basically fold out. We've done one that was in 5 different languages, and that's really, if English isn't your first language, and you open the mail and there's something in your native language, it's going to engage you, you're going to read it, and as it would happen, it's usually the elderly and the people that don't really have a good understanding of English that fall prey to some of these dubious offers that you get in your mailbox. So to have something like that, we spend a lot of time making sure I can tell you we've done this for over 150 communities, but I'm not going to tell you that we know Attleboro as well as you. So we're going to look to your direction as to what you think the most effective way to reach your population is, and we cater the program to that.
Thank you.
One of the things, thank you for that information, is that FAQ part that you mentioned. if you haven't been on it yet, is really, well, it's really very good, and does provide a lot of the information. And I think it was interesting, one of the things that earlier this year, like all of us, these things were coming in the mail. And I started as a homeowner trying to figure out, which one is better than the other. They all sounded pretty good, similar to what Councilor Hayden was saying. But it was interesting that in this particular, situations you're talking about, the way that this, as I understand it, that the public outreach program will go forward, it'll clarify and remove a lot of those questions, because it'll be pretty clear right up front. And again, I'm sure that as we go forward, if we decide to go forward with this, the administration will be able to give you some direction in terms of not only some of the language challenges within the community, but also, as you mentioned, Ross, either with Rotary or through the Council on Aging or whatever, being able to reach out, because you're right, there are certain people who are very, very vulnerable, and we want to make sure that those people are not adversely affected by it. So, but thank you.
And wherever possible, I'll throw this out there just because it's what we've done in the past, but if there are things like translation services or printing services, we always try and use a local company for the city. So we would make sure, with your help, to identify if there's a company that does printing, or if there's a company that that does translation services, we're happy to have a local company benefit from that.
And again, thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate you coming out again.
Ms. Hackney, do you have another question?
Just one small, thank you. I'm speaking for Heather tonight now. When you talked about sending out the mailings, and it will have, do we have to tell you now, we would like the multicultural, the language in different languages? Or, because I know you brought up a good point where some people get these mailings and they don't understand what they're getting. And I have a neighbor that is Cambodian, and I do all the translations for them, and they have gotten something in the mail from a utility company that had nothing to do with the city, but they said you have to join something. So there are like these little things out there, so we'll have the city seal, what the mailing itself for the identification for these households.
So we know it's going to be multicultural, and when we get closer, you can tell us which languages, and we'll work that process with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
That helps.
we would have, we're going to have 3-4 months to figure that out. But it will definitely have the city seal. It will, somebody's going to get that letter, they know it's official business coming from the town, and it won't look like what you're talking about.
Because they were very scared when they did get this notice in the mail. I think some of us have also gotten in these where they got scared, so when they come running to my house. But thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm sure that as we go further into this, that we will have a representative from the council working with the administration and working with you to make sure that this is a smooth transition.
Great, thank you very much for having us.
We thank you for coming, and I hope we didn't extend too many questions that were repeats, but
Never too many.
it's nice to have a week to think about it and be able to answer those questions we didn't quite understand. We all set, gentlemen, ladies? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate the time. I've got 2 motions to go through, and we'll get you on camera. So if
Okay.
you want to go out there, just give us a couple minutes, and I'll call for a recess. All right.
Thank you very much.
From the docket of April 21st, 2015, I entertain a motion to authorize the mayor and appropriate departments to research and develop a plan to participate in a contract or contracts to aggregate the electricity load of the residents and the businesses in the city of Attleboro and for other related services, independently or in joint action with other municipalities, and further to authorize the mayor to execute all documents necessary to accomplish the same.
Second.
I think we've answered all the questions
Twice.
from my committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Have one other motion, and then I will ask, we will recess for 10 minutes. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $14,400 from account 1420100 548010, Public Works gasoline to account 1420100-530101, Public Works Professional Services, relative to the design required for traffic signal improvements at the following locations. Location 1, North Main Street, South Main Street, County Street, and Park Street intersection. Location 2, Bank Street, Railroad Avenue, and Park Street location. Location number 3, Emery Street and Pleasant Street. And location number 4, Pleasant Street, Union Street, and Park Street.
Second.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We have some extra money at this time in gasoline. We will be we'll hopefully transfer that over to professional services so we can get these traffic signals updated and working in a proper order. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Move to adjourn at
You want to
8:07.
recess or adjourn?
Second.
I'm going to adjourn. I have no
Okay.
other business.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to adjourn at 8:07. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And at this time, we're going to take a 10-minute break before the next committee meeting.
Are we gonna start right away?
Can
You
I,
guys start right away? Are they all set out there, Linda, as far as the interview? Okay, so we don't need to recess. Brian?
I'm up.
I thought we do, because James isn't gonna be able to run both cameras.
Oh, that's
and
right.
he's interviewing
Yeah.
Good Energy.
That's right. Well, let me just check and see how long they're going to be, and I'll...
you know what, that's fine, because AACS helps us so much. If they need
Yes.
10 minutes, we'll give them 10
But-
minutes. Okay, is that okay?
Well, I see the crew coming in.
I say lock the cameras, Jim.
You know what? It's our council.
It's whatever, it's whatever.
Here's left me.
And Walter.
He can't run 2 cameras.
I understand.
Mark. Mark's got public safety. Mark's got headers.
Please don't, Gary.
3, 1. We call budget appropriations to order at 8:20. Thank you. There's no motion before the committee this evening, but there is a discussion, and we will be having a public hearing on this issue next week. The mayor has sent down a request for a loan order in the amount of $9,900,000 to fund the construction of the highway, DPW Highway Division building to be built at Lamb Street. In our mailboxes, there was a vote of the planning board that met last night, Monday, April 13th. The planning board voted unanimously in the affirmative, 8 yeas, 0 nays, to recommend to the municipal council that the loan order in the amount of $9,900,000 for the construction of the municipal public works equipment and maintenance facility on Lamb Street is consistent with all portions of the comprehensive plan, and that's all spelled out in the letter as sent to us. So I want to welcome, first of all, the mayor, Jack Jacoby, our building commissioner, building
Commission Chairman.
Commission Chairman, Barry Lacasse, Building and
Director of Budget.
Director of Budget and Administration, Ron Dubuque, who's running the DPW, and Gary Rajan, our city planner. So welcome. So you have the floor. You have the loan order before us, and we have a public hearing next week. But I know this is on the we got to get this done issue. There's some fast track to this. So you wanted the time to come before us, and so we have this time. There are plans available. There are individual plans that I can take the microscope out to see, but there are bigger plans that we have, and that's posted before us. So I want to thank you for that. Mayor?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. We wanted to be able to go through and explain a little bit about what the request was that we sent down. As typical, we send something down to communication, get to sign the committee. We wanted to talk about that with you tonight, and then we know that the actual public hearing is coming up, and we will be back to speak in favor for that. But of course, first and foremost, as you stated and kind of kicked this off tonight, the fact is why we're here is because we're under very tight time constraints.
Yes.
For the replacement facility, and this is a functional replacement. So no one should think that we're getting a Taj Mahal. We're just asking for a functional replacement for the Department of Public Works Highway Division. It's a very important thing. You take the square footage cost times the amount for the bid of the square feet that we got in equals the price that we have before you. That has the bonding cost, contingency, which is about 5% of all of the items. Furniture and fixtures, telecom and computer, the final asphalt top coat, the required DPW radio system, which is for the equipment and for the radios, the clerk of the works contract that's going to help us oversee the construction of the facility, and the base bid and the add alternates, which are the salt shed and the barn for the sand salt mix. And that, believe it or not, that's the 9.9 million. And you all have a copy this evening of the budget breakdown as established by Mr. Lacasse and members of the Municipal Building Commission and as reviewed by the administration. Just to refresh your memory, as suggested by the Municipal Building Commission Chairman, just a little bit of history. When the actual project started off, the city contributed its original portion of the project along with other 35 million, I think, total of all state and federal funding. The city put in its 2.5 million for the project, now leading to the actual construction of Riverfront Drive. And as you recall, we have the $3.96 million MassWorks grant, in addition to $806,000 from GATRA, to be able to have Riverfront Drive constructed, and also the river restoration and the construction of Riverfront Park. That's going to take us through final construction phase of June 30th, 2017, which is the end of fiscal 17. And that's going to be, it already has started last fall. Construction is going to kick up again very soon. I think we were looking for third or fourth week in May is what we were looking for full construction speed ahead. Gary and I met with Century Paving, who has the contract for the construction work, and we're going to be in that phase, and we're going to be heading towards the DPW. Now, why is that important? The buildings have to come down. As the buildings are coming down, we need to have the authorization in place to be able to start for the actual construction. which will lead us towards substantial completion for the building, but for the snow flies. So that way the highway division has a place to store all their equipment and materials, and that we can start off a new snow season out of the new facility. Prior to that, we already, you've seen the progress at the site already. There's been several millions that have already gone into of non-city money to get the site cleaned environmentally to where we are today. The installation of the fuel island, with the utility building, the generator, the site lighting, the binder costs of asphalt, the signage, the fencing, the computer equipment that's there to run the fueling station, the fueling depot. In the fencing, I said with the gates as well. That's all part of the several million that have gone into the facility from other state and other federal resources to get the site ready. This is specifically for the building, as I stated, the salt shed, the sand and salt mix in the salt barn. This is the final coat of asphalt. This is the amount to be able to put up the structure, which is a basic metal building. It has many bays on it, as notated in the design plans and the construction plans that you have in front of you. And it's the replacement value for what we have. And we need to be into the new facility by the time the snow flies, and DPW's gonna be homeless for a little while. So their offices will be here at Government Center with Mr. Dubuque, and they will be located here temporarily so they can actually have professional office space as we get the new facility off the ground and as it's being constructed. We have no wiggle room on this project. The buildings have to come down in order for the new roadway to go through. And we're under tight time constraints, in case anyone's asking, on the MassWorks grant. That is a hard deadline. We have our last extension that's being filed this week, which will bring us to the last absolute date of June 30th, 2017, for 100% project closeout on Riverfront Drive, River Restoration, and Riverfront Park completion. So that's the last date, and so by the time that June 30th, 2017 date hits, that will be the completion of Riverfront Park and the river restoration, and to open that facility. In the meantime, though, the roadway will be done. The buildings will be demolished. All of that's been built into the project budget that we have, and that is not in this 9.9 million. So it's very important, again, to understand specifically for the 9.9 million is only for the facility at Lamb Street, which is a functional replacement. All the other millions of dollars are all of the state and federal dollars, and the remainder of the city funds that the ARA have been very gracious. As you see, you have no design and development services as part of this request, because the ARA paid for all of that design and development services out of the bond. So, and there's only a little over 100,000, I think, left after all of their existing liabilities are taken, so that it's almost completely exhausted from the original purpose of the bond. So this is what we need in order to be able to get the project complete for Lamb Street. And again, this is 101 Lamb Street where the facility is located.
And the costs for taking down the buildings, that's all taken care of through the grants, the
That's
grants on
correct.
that side?
We have a $250,000 line item for the demolition. The quotes that we had received for the demolition came under that, but we're holding a $250,000 amount with a little bit of contingency in there in case they come over, which is something that we felt was responsible as we built our budget and what we were working with. So we have gone through all of the items that we need to on the project. This is a much larger project than ever anticipated with all the moving parts. We've all learned a lot more about environmental contamination and the steps required to get into the new facility. GATRA alone has contributed more than $4 to $5 million alone into the project since we began. Never mind a total of at least 35 million total going into this project since its original inception back in 1999. So that's how long that this project's been going on for. Of course, taking its renewed vision when the council approved the urban renewal plan in 2007. And so really kicking forward from where we are today, we're looking for that standpoint where we saw in 2007, where we are now in 2015. And now really seeing, we got the new building going up now. Parcel number 2 will be in its phase of development, and the actual exchanges of what will happen with the ARA and automatic south parcel that we refer to will be sometime this fall, with spring construction a year from now. So you'll continue to see that happen. And we're also working on the next phases of the redevelopment parcels with the MBTA. So the ARA and MBTA are jointly working together for the future development, which will be from the MBTA parking lot as it exists today behind the bus loop, all the way down to the Olive Street Bridge, which will be the future development pads that will align Riverfront Drive all the way back to the railroad tracks. Really exciting stuff. This is reshaping, redeveloping the city, especially in our urban core, and staying true to smart growth initiatives and tying in together transit with both rail and bus service. And as we continue with our other downtown initiatives that will continue on in 2015 as well. So the group has worked very, very hard, and everyone else has a part in this tonight, so I don't want to go on too much further before I turn it over to Jack, then Barry, then Ron and Gary. But I think that kind of gives the overall project of where we are, and specifically of what this relates to.
Okay. My only question, I know when we bought this, I want to say it's the newest sand, that one's portable, or was supposed to be designed to be moved over. But the old sand salt shed, is that one going to be demolished and
That
a
cannot
new
be
one
moved.
built? Right.
So we'll have a brand-new sand salt wooden structure to be created with its proper foundation. And then we'll also have a new foundation improved on the fabric shelter. I think what you're referencing,
Right.
the white fabric
The
shelter.
white fabric shelter.
We will have a new top that will be purchased, and it'll be properly reinforced now. The standards changed since its original inception when it was created and installed. So it will be beefed up to today's standards for building code, and we will have a new top put on top of it. But the framing in of itself, it will just be reinforced, and there'll be a new top that will be put on it.
Very good. All right. I was thinking the older wooden building, I thought that one was ready to come down.
That one's gonna be demolished as part of all of the building demolition.
Yeah, okay. Now,
Jack?
Sure, be happy to talk. We were given the mandate by the mayor to hire an architect. We hired RGB, Robinson Green Beretta, out of Providence, and they worked very diligently over a very tight time frame, really a couple of months to get this out to bid. And the building commission spent considerable time determining what we had and what we needed. And one of the things that struck me was, and this is not unusual in the city of Attleboro, the building that's being knocked down has served us for 80 years. And so we figured the mandate was to build a metal building that would last for another 80 years, because that seems to be how often a department gets a new building in Attleboro. So, but we also were very mindful of the functionality of the building and very mindful of the cost and holding the size down. So the building that we have designed is 90 feet, and it's about 307 in this direction. And it sits right back against the railroad tracks. There is approximately 10-foot space behind there for access. And if you're looking at your plans, this thing is actually underground. That is the underground infiltration for the storm drainage system. There will be pavement over this, so you won't see that. We have the salt sand storage building here, and we have the salt alone building here. The fueling station's down here. We've created space along in here for them to be able to store concrete bumpers and materials other than the sand and salt that Ron can probably better explain to you. But it was important on this tight site to create some storage. Basically, we've utilized pretty much everything on the site. We also paid particular attention to the interior. So this is the first floor, and then we have a mezzanine in this portion of the building for storage of light things up above. This area is all vehicles. I think the department has 44 vehicles, and the goal was to get them all under cover. And we believe that we may need to use a few of the maintenance bays at night, but we will have every vehicle under cover within the size of the building. We looked at whether we should expand the building or not, but obviously the costs got to the point where that just wasn't feasible. And so we kept it within 7 feet of the size that we originally started with. We interviewed all of the employees down at the garage. Barry and I spent a couple of mornings down there with Ron, and Gary, I think, attended one of the meetings as well. But we spent time talking to the people who actually work in the building. We talked to the welder, and we talked to the mechanics, and we asked them, you know, what do you have now? How much space do you need? How does your space work, and how doesn't it work? So, and we obviously had the architects there at the same time, so that we could make sure that every one of the spaces that we've arranged here for them are functional for them and fit together in the building, so that the work flows through the building. So that is what we did, and I think somewhere, Barry, do we have the elevations?
Yes, last one, Jack, behind you.
So you'll see that we have 1 million garage doors along the front. To get the vehicles in and out, those doors are different sizes depending on which vehicles are going to be stored in which areas. This is the back, and we do have some access in the back. The sides here, we actually have a side door that comes around here so that they can actually drive in and go straight through rather than having to back in. I understand that backing a large vehicle can be a problem at times. We do, however, have bollards by every one of the doors to protect the garage door opening mechanism, so that if a truck gets a little bit offline, it won't damage the doors. So we have, and the office end is down here, tried to have a little canopy to invite people in. Over here at the right side, we have a grit wash area. As I understand it, when the vehicles get really dirty and really covered with sand and salt and caked on, the inside wash, which we have, if you'll see on the plans, there's an inside washing area. There would be too much coming off the trucks, and it would clog the system up. So we created an outdoor with a canopy over it, grit wash to do the heavy washing, with a specially designed stormwater system to take care of, wastewater system to take care of that. We also have an area out there to clean the vehicles that paint, because you gotta get the line painting, you gotta clean those, and we have to treat that separately as well. But we have tried to anticipate everything that they'll need for the next 80 years. Find out 20 or 30 years from now how good a job we did. But we feel confident that we have a good plan and an effective plan, and one, even though the number is high, we were told by the architects to figure on this right from the get-go. So the bidding climate was good and the bids were pretty good. It's just a fact of life, as I've been here before and told you, that with the filed sub-bid law and the prevailing wages, things cost more when a municipality does it than you would think otherwise in private industry. Excuse me. So we are confident that we have done this correctly. We're confident that the needs of the employees have been met without going overboard and, putting things on the Christmas wish list. What we've done, we think, is utilitarian and effective. Excuse me. So those are the things that I had planned to say. If there's any questions for me.
Mr. Blair?
Going over the use of funds list here, you have a 1 and 2 add-ons come up to
Yeah.
the sum of $670,000.
Yes, those are the 2 outbuildings. Those are these two buildings right here. And-
Those are the two salt sheds?
Yes, one is for salt alone and the other
One
is for
sand
salt
and
and sand
salt.
mixed together. And I understand that in the parking area here is where they would deliver sand, salt would be its building, and then when they mix them together, they put it inside the other
Okay.
building.
You're just curious.
What, part of the reason for the expense of the building with the fabric top is, as I understand it, it's got block walls right now, and so you have to have a wide aisle so that the vehicles inside the building don't hit the block walls and knock them down. So we have designed this with concrete walls so that we can use the entire area inside the building and a vehicle won't knock that down. That was request from the department, but it also was because of the tightness of the site. We really can't move at all in this direction. You go topographically and with the wetlands,
Yeah.
we're pretty much at the limit of what we can do here.
Okay, but those are the two add-ons then?
That's right.
Okay.
We did that because we always like to put ourselves in the position that if those things were too high, that we could go back out to bid for them.
Oh, in other words, these two items, you could go back out. and bid.
We could choose the base bid, or we could choose the base bid plus one, or we could choose the base bid plus 1 and 2. We have 3 options before us.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Thanks, Jack, for your diligence.
And I think it's important to mention, Council, that I think it is the intention of the Municipal Building Commission to take a hard look at those two ad alternates to decide whether or not they fit our needs or whether or not it makes sense for the city to go out to bid for those two. So that's something that the NBC will be
I
looking
think
at.
both those, excuse me, Gary, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think both of those buildings are a necessity.
Oh, they are. I'm just talking about the price.
Oh, yeah,
the
well, that's
question
why
is
I was surprised that you could separate them so you could bid them separately, and that's why I said you due diligence to look to save us some money somehow, some way.
Yeah, because everything else in the main building is all rolled into one price.
Okay.
But this way, we kept our options open, that if the price is too high, and as Barry said, we are gonna take a hard look at that over the next couple of weeks, we can
Okay.
then put those back out to bid. $670,000. We talked to the architect today about whether that was appropriate or not. We're seeking their advice as to whether that is in keeping with their expectations and where they think the bidding climate should be.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jack.
Ms. Hegney had a question?
Thank you. Jack, you brought up a good point, thank you, is if we go back to bid, are we gonna maybe see a higher cost, or what are the options there, are you saying?
If we
For the
think,
other-
if we think the cost would go up for
Right.
those two buildings, then we would not put it back out to bid.
So then what would you
We would
do?
only do it if we had strong assurances from the architect that we would be able to beat those prices by putting it back out. I mean, there was another bidder who bid $500,000, and unfortunately, we had to disqualify him because he was above his DCAM limit. His DCAM limit was 7.7, and the project was 8.1 as he bid it, and so unfortunately, his bid was illusory, it was not acceptable, and that's why we're here with the numbers that we are. But his bids on those two aid alternates were $170,000 cheaper, so that gets our attention.
Well, because you've brought this up before, where you're saying sometimes where you think the grass might be greener on the other side, put it back out to bid, but you might not like what comes back in.
Yes, and so we're going to be very careful.
Yes, thank you for that, thank you.
Any other questions at this point? Barry, I think you're up.
Jack and the mayor really stole my thunder on a lot of the items. Thank you. I did want to talk about them. Obviously, it's a big price tag. We know that. But it is something that obviously we feel from a budgetary point of view, we not only must, but we can absorb. We have some debt falling off in general government over the next several years. So we're going to be, when working with the treasurer, we're going to be going long on this, which is 20 years. So we have a 20-year amortization schedule for this, which is a little out of the ordinary for us. We'd like to go shorter and get the debt paid off quicker, but we thought with a nut like this, we wanted to go out a little longer. And plus, as Jack said, this building is going to last the city 80 years. So we thought 20 years for an amortization schedule made sense. So, and that helps obviously with budgets, for future budgets as well.
And so when would this debt hit? Because it wouldn't hit in 2016, not till 2017.
2017,
Okay, so when we're looking at it, go from 2017 to 2037. Wow. Mr. Conti?
Thank you. Barry, I don't think that this is much of a surprise. It looks like a big number, but as Jack Jacoby said when he came up in front of us, for the animal shelter, $300 a square foot is the new norm. And that's right where you are. I mean, doing the calculations, you're somewhere between $289 and $292 a square foot for a vanilla box. I mean, it's not a glamorous building, it's a metal building.
With a shed roof, and
With a shed
obviously,
roof.
you know, that, we didn't want asphalt, we wanted a metal roof that, with a slight slope that made sense for maintenance and everything else.
And, you know, the council is in no position here. I mean, since 1999, we've spent $50 million between Larson Tool and Cumberland Farms. This is the end of it. I mean,
We are, and that's a great point, because when you look back on the urban renewal plan and you dust that off and you look at it, this was part of the plan.
Right.
And that's kind of exciting.
Right, so, you know, I don't see us being in a challenging position here to look at this request. But I did want to know is that in your figures for furniture and fixtures and telecom computers and
Asphalt.
and the new required radio DPW system, those numbers include the contingency, or did you just lump something in at the end to give you a 10%?
No, it's actually about a 5% contingency, I believe.
5%.
Yep.
And why is the DPW required to get a new radio system?
So that's part of, their current channel right now is not on a repeater system. So they're going to a new frequency. Their frequency is the old police department VHF frequency, which has to be narrow banded. In order to narrow band that, there's 36 to 41 all new radios that have to go into all of the vehicles that have to be narrow banded. Their current radios that they have in their vehicle, except for the newer vehicles, they cannot be narrow banded. So all new radios in the vehicles, they currently don't have handheld radios. That includes the handheld radios for all of the vehicles, which are also going to be used for snow operations, for all of the professional services account, which we use for all of our contract people. Now they can be in constant communication with a handheld radio that'll be assigned to those people. So it'll be used for not only for the DPW crews in the good weather, but in the bad weather they can be assigned out to the specific people, the contractors. This also includes all satellite receivers and the actual repeater system to be put onto that channel, which currently only has one that's in operation. So now there will be, out of the 5 locations, only one is narrow bandable, so to say. The other 4, this includes 4 new repeaters and 4 new satellite receivers. And it will also be for the new base mount that'll be at the new building, which will be for their main transmitter point. And it also includes the digital converters to go over the fiber network that goes up to ITIL. So that's encompassing of all of those things, which will get them into the new facility, and it will get them onto their new channel, which they're required by FCC regulations to do so. So we don't have a choice in this.
Yep. And it's a complete system from what you're telling me, with the
Complete.
satellite receiver, the 4 additional location repeaters, and the new base mount. I mean, that's...
And the digital
It's
converters.
been a few years since I went to the Mass Buys Expo, but I think 3 or 4 years ago when I went there, this narrowband system included GPS. Is that part of the package?
They're automatically included with that capability.
Yep. So,
That's a separate issue for a discussion at another time.
okay, we will have that discussion at another time.
And while it sounds like, while we're looking at a functional replacement for the building, this is certainly an upgrade, because we're bringing this facility from 1940s, really, to the 2000s, and so that it can last for 80 years, and we're setting it up so that it can.
So I think it's important to note specifically on the communications network now, if they're not within a certain radius of each other, they can't hear each other. So that's a current communication issue that they have. So if someone's out in the country, they're out in Wilmot Street or Slater Street area, unless they're going radio to vehicle to vehicle, the base radio isn't gonna pick them up because they're not on a repeater system on their current channel.
Okay.
So they're going to the old police VHF channel. And that will
Makes
beef
a lot.
up to the new frequency and to narrow band, which is required anyway. And then we recycle their old channel that's gonna be used for other purposes. Their old channel will then get narrow banded and it'll be used for some other things that we have coming down the line. That's for some other school-related things and some other citywide related issues that'll be on their old narrow banded channel.
You have a question, Mr. Cooper?
We do really. It's quick. I feel like we knew that the DPW was had the old, I'll call it the old technology versus the new technology several years back when Barry and yourself came and the police chief and presented the police chief upgrade. We knew that we were saving the old system for the DPW and pass that down, but we also knew that when something happened here, that we were gonna have to upgrade it so that the same communication issues that the police were having, although one could argue they were a little different, were still gonna happen when you gave those radios to the DPW. They weren't miraculously going to go away. So I feel like we knew that, but it just puts it in a different spot, and it seems a little high, but we all know what we spent for the police upgrade, so I think it's okay. Is the contingency,
Go ahead.
the contingency 5%, is that like a standard?
Typically, we like to do 8 to 10%.
Okay.
On a project contingency. We've been building that in the things that we've been sending down to the council. We tried to be as conservative as possible, and the contingency that you see, it's kind of highlighted, is only based on the 3 things listed below, which is the base bid, ad alternate 1, and ad alternate 2, and that's what is based for the contingency. The other, for furnitures and fixtures, telecom, computers, asphalt, the radio system, and the clerks of the works contract, we felt that those didn't need a contingency because they're pretty much very hard and fact numbers. So for example, we have a contract for clerk of the works, we have bid results for asphalt, we have the state bid list for all of the radio required equipment and upgrades, and the estimates as provided by the design folks for the furniture and telecom. So we felt that we didn't need the contingency on those because we either have contracts in place or state bid list or things that were very good estimates. The other things are for complete unforeseen during construction. So we limited the contingency only to construction and not on the other items that are not listed. So we did not do across the board contingency on everything. It was only based upon the construction.
Okay, very good, thank you.
If I could, I just want to add one thing. I think it's very important, and that is the clerk of the works. One of the projects that we worked on recently that went so smoothly was the Attleboro track and field. And one of the reasons why it went so smoothly is we had a very good clerk of the works on that project. Someone who was there, boots on the ground, every day, making sure the contractors and their subs are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. We were fortunate enough, after we went out and solicited quotes and interviews with folks, we were fortunate enough to find this group out of Rhode Island, ABM Group, who interviewed very well. We interviewed them twice, as a matter of fact, and they did an outstanding job, and they have outstanding credentials, and we're very confident that they're going to help us not only save money, but make sure that this project is completed on time, which is a major milestone for us. We have to. So I know that it's in there, and the mayor mentioned the clerk of the works, but I just wanted to say that that's a very important piece of this puzzle as well.
Well, the track and field had a hard and fast, if I'm not
Like
mistaken,
this, correct.
60-day deadline that we had to get through to get that track opened on time for the season.
110.
110. I remember it was the day after graduation to the first kickoff. So I just don't remember the days, but I remember that was that tight, and the rain and getting out the fill that had to be removed from underneath and all the pieces of that. And yet you still finished that on time. This is the same type of thing where you have to get this building up and substantially complete so that we can have our winter program for the next time the snow flies. So let's hope it's not in May.
Long time. Let's hope for a long time.
Hope it's not till February of 17.
That'd be good. But the fact that there's still an issue where you're probably shooting for what, December?
December 15th is substantial completion.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add
Certainly.
one more thing on the contingency. Most of the problems that you have and use your contingency for are things that are related to site work and things you discover when you dig in the ground. Well, we're hardly at all digging in the ground here. The footings are going down less than 6 feet, as I understand it. So we are not expecting to encounter differing site conditions. This is also a prepackaged metal building, so we are not expecting a whole lot of issues that will arise with basically a factory-prepared building. So we felt confident that with the 5% that we were okay, rather than having to go 8 to 10% on that.
Okay. Questions? Ms. Hagan?
You might have already said this, but are you gonna keep the offices here, or all the offices gonna go down to Lamb Street?
The offices will stay here,
The main office stays
The main
here.
the main office.
Okay, great,
And
thanks.
then the highway foreman and those folks will be in the new facility once
Okay.
it's up and running.
Okay. Any other questions? More presentation? Ron, we have anything? Yeah, they've been,
I think they've stole all my thunder. No, the thing that I'd like to say is I'm excited about this project. I'm excited that I'm living in between these two 80-year periods and are able to be part of this team that's actually going to build out this new facility that is going to improve the highway division. And I can't tell you how this is going to help our crews being in a new facility and operating out of a clean facility. We're going to be taking a lot of our existing equipment out of the old building, everything from benches to grinders to welders, you name it. That we'll have some new modern things like modern ventilation for the trucks. We'll have lube reels for, we won't be lugging around tubs of grease anymore. We'll have lube reels. We'll have a fluid room that has secondary containment in it. We'll have air drops that will be conveniently, you'll be able to plug things into. You won't have to run, hoses along the floor. And all those types of things are things that we thought about when we did this building, when we talked to the guys and how to make their life a little more efficient. So we got some good input from them. So I think the team has really thought this out. I'm excited about the building. It's got a lot of natural light. It's got some cowl wall, so some natural light will come in. The lighting system is all LED, so it's very efficient. We'll have some HVAC in the office area. We'll have a sign-making room that has all the equipment in it. We won't have the plotter that's upstairs and the vacuum table that's over here and the sign storage, outside in a shed somewhere. So I'm excited about this whole building, going up, and I think it'll be a very good addition to not only the highway division, but for the city to be proud of something that we're doing like this, that only happens once every 80 years.
excellent. Any questions for Ron at this point? Gary?
I was just here tonight to answer any technical questions, or if there was any questions on the thought process, at least to offer some insight, so I don't have anything to add to the presentation.
Okay.
I want to give Gary a lot of credit, because when this was handed over to us at the MBC, Gary had already already done all of the legwork. The site work was done, the design portion was done. We knew approximately where the building would go and what size it needed to be, and we were able then to concentrate on other things rather than having to start from scratch. So Gary did a great job working with the Worsley Whitten Group to prepare us, and I really want to thank him. And I also want to thank Ron for the time that he spent working with us, and especially Barry, who's been invaluable working with the MBC. And of course, the leadership that we get from the boss is unparalleled. So this was really a team effort, and it makes our job so much easier at the MBC with the support that we get from all these other people.
Okay. Excellent. It's been a very successful team going through the track and then concession stand, the animal shelter. So another. No,
By the way, we're starting up again we had a meeting tonight for the concession stand spring edition, and
Okay.
we're starting on May 2nd, I believe, is what that's a Saturday. So
Saturday.
we'll be sending out emails and trying to solicit some volunteers to come over, and we're in the final stretch.
Yep. May 2nd. Okay, May 2nd for the going back to the concession stand.
Right.
And then we're gonna do a little volunteerism at the animal shelter, I understand, too. We gotta work that out. Something
And the
else.
river cleanup.
And the river cleanup.
Yeah.
We gotta get back in the river.
If I can add that plug in, the MBC is meeting on May 6th at 5 p.m. at the animal shelter for a tour. It's going to be very far along at that point. So if any of you would like to attend that meeting and take the tour, 5 o'clock at the animal shelter on May 6th. And then once we finish there, we'll come back here to do our regular bill paying things. But certainly, we'd love to have any of you there to see what progress we've made.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for your presentation.
Hopefully that was what you were looking for.
Um,
So to be able to, we kind of wanted to cover it from soup to nuts for you.
Absolutely.
Break it down and make sure it was understandable.
And I like it with this way rather than trying to do it on the night of the public hearing. That way, we get the information, it can get out, get digested, and if people have questions beyond that, then they can bring that to the public hearing. So that's a great
If there's
thing.
any questions between now and next week, if something comes up, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get you an answer for whatever you need.
Great. I think we're set at this point. I can't vote on anything tonight because, again, it's got to go for the public hearing, so,
No problem.
but thank you all for coming. I appreciate the presentation. Thank you. With that, I'm going to move to adjourn budget appropriations. Mr. Cooper?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned at 9:02. Thank you.
I've done mine.
City property claims I thought was being canceled, but I'm not.
Public safety and emergency management?
I have two things. Are you up?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Zoning and land use is canceled this evening.
Yeah, I think that she's calling a meeting for, what, I'll check with Linda.
Call point, intensive care for Christ's sake.
No, I think that,
Call public safety to order 9:03.
She's in the hospital, intensive care.
I know.
From the docket of April
Next week.
21st, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to appropriate $50,000 from Fund 1000-359000, undesignated Fund General Government Free Cash to account 122-01000-513-0005 overtime for overtime funding due to the filling of vacancies, hiring delays, and long-term injuries and illnesses.
Second.
We all received a lengthy memo from the fire chief in regards to the unexpected vacancies and the shifting, for lack of a better word, I'll use, that will be necessary in order to cover those vacancies in terms of salary. So through the vacancy, he's able to cover all but $50,000. I haven't reached out to him. I've had a lot going on this last week, so I haven't reached out to him, but I commit to all of you that I will, before our next meeting, to answer any questions that you all may have this evening. But, if anybody has any questions or comments, I know Mr. Churchill did
I'll let you, Mr. Chairman, I'll let you reach out to him, and when you bring it out next week, I'll add to your comments.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any other questions or comments specifically regarding this they'd like me to ask the chief? I will get in touch with him this week and meet with him before
I would
the
be
meeting.
concerned of how much they spent and what's the aggregate gonna be per week till the end of the year.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, sir.
Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you, motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $2,650 to account 113310000-541010 Budget Administration Software relative to the launching of C-Click Fix, which is an interactive tool residents will be able to use to alert the city of non-emergency issues from the following accounts: $2,161.36 from account 113310000-524214 Budget Administration Maintenance of Payment Processor, and $488.64 from account 113310000-524211 Budget Administration Maintenance of Software.
Seconded.
Thank you. Mr. Churchill, the backup material came, the city did receive a grant for a portion of this, the development of this, which you received through a copy of through the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. The name of the, as I said, is C-Click Fix. We will, under this program, the first year of the Commonwealth Connect platform is $5,150. Again, we got a $2,500 grant, and we are responsible for the remaining cost, $2,650. Hence the two transfers from budget and administration. Barry Lacasse sent us a memo attached to that from the MAPC, and he had some money left because of the changes to the NCR Corporation, and NetVantage came in under projections, and that allowed for some funding in those two line items, which we are using to then fund. But, yeah.
Once it's established, it's at an annual cost.
Yes, it is. The 5,100 is an annual cost, but from what I understand, and I will have a conversation with Barry about it. I spoke to him tonight. There's other functionality that this has right now. It's around DPW type things, but it could be other. There could be other things that could be added and are likely to be added. There are other municipalities that have similar type apps for other things.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, it's basically a non-emergency community bulletin board. Get information about problems.
I don't.
In reverse.
Reverse.
In
yes.
reverse. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
In reverse.
In reverse. Yep. Any other? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great project, and I actually think we might see some cost reductions once we start instituting this, because rather than having an employee having to take a phone call and say, okay, was that pothole on the east side or the west side? Well, what's the east side of the street? What's the west side of the street? I don't know. Having to have a 10-minute conversation to hash that out. We all have smartphones with GPSs on them. It links to the GPS.
Right.
GPS is not wrong, so you just say, there's a pothole here, then it gives you an option to take a picture. You can take a picture of it, you can send it in. And I actually think probably this will be revenue neutral, because we'll save some payroll, or we'll be able to move around payroll or use our employees for different functions. Whereas this will take a lot of the long, extended, difficult phone calls off the plate of the DPW highway, and it'll just be automized now.
And I would, hopefully it'll save us $5,000 in gas. When somebody calls and reports a pothole or this or that, somebody doesn't have to go out and look at it. You can send them, like you said, you can send a picture right to the thing. Somebody here has to check it. Somebody here has to check what was sent in. But you know, I'm not a super user of this smartphone, but I think I could figure out this app. Mr. Conti?
None of us are cost accountants, and I don't think I have any faith that this is actually gonna save the money in the city, but I support it because it opens up communication of the residents to government. And I don't think either one of you were on the council when I was the technology chairman, but that's a true passion of mine, is to try to open up the door between the residents of the city to be able to communicate to the city, and this does exactly that. And at $5,000, I think that's a very small price to pay to open up that door. I've seen it happen in Taunton, where Taunton uses Twitter to notify all the residents instantly of a down wire, so it's the reverse of what you're doing. And they've done that very economically. So I think, we're coming into the age where this is getting to be very feasible, very economical, and I think we would be remiss not to do it. I think we should do it.
And I think half of it's paid for through a grant.
Well,
so I
it's gonna
think
be an
that's-
ongoing $5,000, $6,000,
go up.
$7,000. It's gonna go up. But you know what? It's allowing the residents to communicate with government, which I entirely support, and that concludes my comments.
As long as they're not communicating with us in the council chambers.
You know,
'cause
it
Lord
might
knows
take
we
a few
can't
phone
use
calls off my log
technology.
list. You're right. You're right.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you.
Bless you.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned, 9:11.
Capital improvements in city development is canceled. I will be doing
Can you cancel zoning?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Churchill, come on down.
I didn't hear that, Mr. Conti. Did you cancel transportation?
I canceled capital improvements in city development, and I will do traffic and
Okay.
transportation after licenses.
Okay, did you cancel?
I already canceled.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just trying to see who else had canceled.
I'm gonna call licensing to order at 9:11. How appropriate.
Karen, finish it. I'm gonna
Sounds
finish
good.
after him first, though, because I was in recess.
That's right, you're
If you don't,
Right.
I'll just sit here.
I have two motions this evening for the council. From the docket of April 21st, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the VFW Post 115 at 123 Park Street, Attleboro, Mass. for permission to hold the annual Poppy Drive on Saturday, May 9th, with a rain date of Saturday, May 16th.
Second.
I think this doesn't take any explaining, but for the people at home, I've talked to the Veterans Office, Philip Audette. This is an annual drive. It goes directly to the post to help Veterans Affairs, and it's just as traditional as, well, not Christmas, but it's certainly a good idea to help the veterans of the city. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the last, before they go out of here, I have from the docket of April 7th, 2015, I entertain a motion to approve the application of a new 2015 Class II auto license from State Line Auto Broker, Inc., 1115 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass. for 6 customer parking spaces and 42 display spaces and 55 storage spaces on Westminster Street, Plot 3, Lot 66.
Second.
Any concerns or questions? As you know, yes.
Did you follow up and see
I was
what
there
going on?
today, around 4:30. Besides talking to the gentleman on the phone, I explained to him the council's concern of keeping the number of vehicles down. I also talked to Mr. Governor, who's present here this evening. He had one complaint in regards to a car being parked, but at this point in time, it looks like I will be checking on him every week, but I say it right at this point in time, he is compliant, and I'll leave it up to you when we bring it up to the dishonorable body next week.
So the car counts are good.
The car count and displays on the thing was down, and the cars on the other side were 55.
Which is fine. And then it was a Rite Aid where they were parking? Or were there any cars at that Rite
I
Aid?
didn't see any.
Okay. All right. And your recommendation would be?
My recommendation is to move on, give this gentleman his license, and I will monitor him every week.
I will
Do that.
follow your recommendations.
City property.
Any other concerns?
City property.
Well, I think that those were my concerns, with that the counts were correct, and that the Rite Aid store had stopped. I also think as Peter, as a condition of it, we ought to, say is entrance and egress is as depicted on his plan.
Yes.
The gentleman that spoke said he kind of takes the liberty to drive unregistered, cars with no plates, and he's driving them across the street back and forth, and he's using a back entrance and parking them on the street, all of which he shouldn't be doing. So, you didn't see that, obviously, as you stated, but I think we should certainly limit his egress into where he,
I had,
as a
if I may,
condition.
Counselor, I had told him that this was a close vote to even bring it out, and that the council was concerned about the complaints, and that I would also speak to his lawyer and remind him that he has to stay within these guidelines, and that I would check on him every week.
Okay.
And I hope that that is sufficient. I mean, we always have the option of revocation, but I don't want to see this guy go out of business, but at the same time, I would like to see that there's no more complaints against him.
right. Agreed. Thank you.
Yes, Counselor.
Thank you, Councilor Churchill. One of the things that came up was like the site planned, and they are engineered, because I know, being the chair before, and Jeremy was the chair, and anyone else had ever chaired the license committee, that had been an issue before, is people that wanted to get a new license and they needed a site plan. Those do cost an upward amount of at least $1,000 sometimes, and they are engineered. And it's just not something that somebody writes down as a site plan that Doug does sign off on. And I do take Doug's decision and his process into my decisions also. And for him to say and initial it and okay it, that is something that I do take into this as a consideration.
Well, he had to hire a lawyer, he had to
Yeah.
readdress his concerns that the city had, and I'm gonna give him the opportunity to live up to those commitments.
Right.
And I will check on him weekly.
Right, because that's not just a freehand drawing, that is an engineered to scale drawing, so thank you, that's it.
I know that for a fact. an
Okay.
engineer that did it.
Spencer, are there any
Couple
other
thousand.
concerns?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
That concludes my motions. I motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 9:17.
thank you. I'd like to call Personnel and Human Services back from recess, please. I just wanted to double check one item. And I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer $4,825.60 from account 112410000-5783000 citywide reserve fund for transfer, excuse me, excuse me, to account 129210000-513000 animal control overtime relative to an unforeseen illness as well as increased call volume during fiscal year 2015.
Second.
Thank you. And I just wanted to get the backup in case there was any questions. And because of the illness, and it's created some overtime for animal control, and and Sonny went over doing a comparison for till the end of the budget, the fiscal year, and he thought that the $4,825.60 to cover the overtime expense, looking into the number of calls, and then Butch Kiefer is an overtime rate, and then emergency call will yield 4 hours of overtime per contract. So they did everything. I'm sorry, I can't talk that much, so I just wanted to go over that because of an illness, it has created overtime, which we've seen in other departments. And then if they don't use it, the accounts are swept at the end of the year into the general account. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Motion passes. I'd like to adjourn Personnel and Human Services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Excuse me.
I'd like to call the Committee for Traffic and Transportation to order at 9:19. I am doing this tonight at the request of Councilor Thibodeau, who has asked me to bring out the planning board recommendation relative to Harvard Street for him. And sitting with me on the committee will be President Cook as a second member. From the docket of April 21st, 2015, I entertain a motion to follow the recommendations from the planning board and SRPED, that's SRPEDD, and request that Bishop Feen's high school engineering firm prepare and submit a full and comprehensive traffic study. A letter is to be forwarded to the school's attorney with attached copies of the planning board's recommendation and the SRPED comment letter.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the support material, I believe, has been circulated to all councilors, that the planning board had a very trying time with this recommendation to the council. In fact, I think that this is probably the most intense planning board issue that they've had to deal with since I've been a councilor in 5 years. It's one that I think had them split, and I like their recommendation at the end. I think that the discussion brought them to an excellent recommendation going forward. To hear SRPED recommended, and then the planning board recommended, as well as, if you recall, the Bishop Feen traffic engineer saying more study is in order. So now we've got 3 educated, elevated professionals in that field, being the planning board body, SRPED, and the traffic engineer from Bishop Feen, all recommendation for the study. So I think that we put that in the hands of Bishop Feen and put the ball in their court, and that concludes my comments. President Cook, do you have any additional add?
No, I think that you summarized it very succinctly.
Does anyone else
So
have
we're just
any
waiting to see.
that they would like to make? Yes.
I know you're not Walter, but I'm sure you read everything. Do we have any time frames about anything that's going on?
No. All the original timeframes have been put aside.
Right.
And I think we're drifting through a negotiated period. And I'm not mindful of any timetables being in effect.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I don't disagree with the request. I think it seems like a stall tactic.
I understand that comment. And you're entitled to your opinion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it will be so recorded. Anything else?
It's just a big decision, that's all.
It is a big decision. Motion's in order. All in favor?
Aye.
It'll be in front of the council next week. Thank you all for your attention. I move the Traffic and Transportation Committee be adjourned at 9:22.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
So be it. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Okay. That's it. Shannon, how many motions did you have tonight? No, Shannon.
4.
4?
Correct.
All right, which one did you hold? I missed one.
The waste
Oh, the classification?
coordinator.